We now have a ceiling in the shipping container. It's brilliant. It's got light fittings and lights that work. It's insulated and it's made a huge difference to the temperature on a hot day, and it's actually really cool. We're chuffed to bits. The first ceiling design had a few flaws. It was plywood suspended over a steel and aluminium frame. As soon as you take the plywood off the stack in the timber shop, it starts to twist. If it's not screwed to a wooden framework to keep it flat, then it bows and warps horribly. There was another challenge. When I put up large sheets, although the span was only 1.2 meters, it would bow and sag in the middle, which wasn't very pretty. And the third issue was it was very difficult to stuff insulation into the gap. I had a rethink and I made a new prototype, which I was much happier with. This was made in a modular way so that I could make them on my own and just put them into place when I got assistance. There are two sorts of panels, one has lights and one is much simpler with just insulation inside it. So here's how I made a ceiling panel. I got a sheet of 15mm tongue and groove flooring. I cut a timber frame to go around the outside. The pine frame allows it to span the 2.5 meters across the ceiling in a single run. I put in holes for the lights and holes for the light switches. I turned them over and painted them with white undercoat, which is going to increase the amount of reflected light and make the container seem lighter. I put in the light fittings which I got off eBay, and to prevent any of the contacts coming in with the insulation, I cut drain pipe to an appropriate length, and then I put those over the holes around the light fittings, and I just used a bead of silicone to hold it in place. I put in sound and thermal insulation bands, and then I wired up the lights. I filled in the gap in between until I had a completely insulated wired up panel. I finished it off by putting on a sheet of reflective bubble wrap which acts as an insulator and reflects radiant heat. This was screwed down with button screws. I got quite good at it by the end of it. To allow the panels to go into the ceiling space, I left gaps in the supports. I made small ledges out of steel and I put in removable and replaceable ceiling supports. This is putting the panel in, and it was probably the hardest part of the entire project up to now.
Alright. There we go.
Wow. Hey.
Just there for a second. Right.
Beaut.
Next one, yeah.
One. Okay. Brilliant.
Very smooth operation.
Okay. The 12-volt lighting circuit has 5 drop-down points, so at each point you've got a black and a red, which is the plus and minus for the 12. Each of the lighting panel has a red and a black wire, so I just had to join the reds to the reds and the blacks to the black. There was a small gap in the ceiling where the chimney pokes through, so I just put in some timber framework and I'll put in a filler at a later date. I'll make part of it an access hatch. There's a 4-inch gap above the ceiling panels, and if you look through you can see the conduits and you can just do a visual inspection of anything going on the top.